Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Caroline, and I am on the board of directors for DBSA California. We're very excited that you've decided to join us for our third Thursday. We have a great speaker. We are a donation-based organization. That QR code is to donate directly to us. It goes directly to supporting our peer support groups as well as these programming. You're welcome whether you donate or not, but I do want to bring that to your attention. With that said, I would very much love to introduce our speaker for tonight, Michael Schneider. After taking accountability for his bipolar condition, Michael stopped having manic episodes, and it's been 25 years since his last one. He is now a Stanford graduate, has led a successful technology career, and lives with his loving family in San Francisco. He's written a book about his experience and provides a range of services for those who are diagnosed or the loved ones of someone who is. His book, The Veil, is available on Amazon, which I will put in the chat. And you can learn more about his services he offers on his website, michaelschneiderspeaks.com. And I'll also put that on in the chat. But without further ado, Michael, turning it over to you.
All right, Caroline, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in. I'm so excited to be here and just so humbled. I have a view of the participant screen, and there are almost 40 people on right now. So it's mind blowing. This is really, really exciting. So thank you everyone for tuning in. All right. And we will have time at the end for questions. So I'm just going to go through the entire deck. I think everyone's muted anyway, but if you have questions, I'll be sticking around to answer them. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I told the DBSA team that I don't have a hard stop at 7:30. So if people want to stay on and just chat or ask questions, if I can be of service, I'm happy to do that. So we'll jump into it here with my talk. So here we go. Bipolar to balance. This is my story, and just advance the slide. There we go. Why I'm sitting here, I should say, but why I'm here is really it's one patient, one outcome, one perspective. I am not a clinical study. I am one person who had an experience with bipolar disorder that I wanted to share, and that I think other people can potentially benefit from. It's it's not a clinical study. It's a personal experience, and it's what worked for me to stop having episodes. It's been a long time since I had my last one. We'll talk a little bit about that. But for me, the principles of ownership and reframing the way I looked at bipolar disorder to me were key to my recovery, which has been so far long-standing, and hopefully will go on for the next long while. I'd be happy to ride this out until the end if I'm able to. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So we'll take a step back into the past and start at the beginning. Where it all began was when I was 17 years old and a senior in high school in Bridgewater, New Jersey. This is back a long time ago now. I'm an old man. But I was 17 and an academic achiever, so doing well in school, had some good prospects for colleges. I was an athlete, so lots of pressure that was self-imposed. And um, what happened my senior year is my grandfather died. So in addition to all of the normal pressure of being a high school senior, I added that to the mix, and that was, as been explained to me, the straw that broke the camel's back. So that was the trigger, and for me, the trigger manifested itself in the form of a depression that kicked in my senior year and continued for my entire senior year. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what depression was. Didn't have a word for it because I didn't have the education or the understanding. I was just ignorant. Didn't know what depression was. Just knew that I felt awful and knew that all I wanted to do was sleep and stay in bed, and that getting and leaving my room was terrifying, and that going to school and walking the halls was terrifying, and that I hated every minute of it. And I was in that state for months and months. So my entire senior year, pretty much. I kept up the front for everyone else to see of being just a normal senior going to parties and doing the normal things, but inside I was crumbling. I was clinically depressed. It was a real depression, and that went on my entire senior year until I woke up the morning of graduation and felt fixed. The depression, the morning of graduation, the depression was gone. It had been vanquished. It was not part of me anymore. I felt energized and confident and wonderful and strong and all things that I felt before the depression kicked in at the beginning of my senior year. And I felt fantastic. It was graduation and ready to give a speech that I had written when I was depressed. Took one look at that speech and threw it in the garbage and winged my valedictory speech. It was memorable to a number of folks. It was abrupt, and it left an impression on the audience. But I felt fantastic delivering it, giving it confident. Everything was back and running at full speed. And this was just the beginning. So in bipolar terms, this was the beginning of hypomania, and I had done what's called cycling up in the world of bipolar. So I had cycled up from depression into hypomania, and that was something that continued for quite a while. Mania itself for me was a process. It wasn't sudden, it built over time. And over the course of the summer and on and beyond the summer, I just started feeling better and better and better and more confident and more energized and more. It was remarkable, the feeling of especially contrasted with the the debilitating depression that I had just gotten out of. I spent that summer ramping up over the course of the summer, and it was not without friction. So in addition to starting a company that I was going to take to college with me when I left in the fall, and working out 7 days a week and doing and sleeping less and less, it had its downsides. So I was in constant conflict with my parents, with friends, with family. It was the reality for me of ramping up into mania, or into hypomania, I should say, was that everything became more like I mentioned. So my ego inflated, and my aggression inflated, and the fact that the belief that I was right about what I was doing inflated, and I was just unstoppable and determined to basically take over and take on the entire world. And that was what I endeavored to do as I ramped up. That is not without its own friction points. My relationship with, or my yeah, relationship with the law deteriorated, for example. So over the course of the summer, at the towards the middle of the summer, I bought a new car, a sports car, an RX-7, a Mazda RX-7 Turbo, which is a fast little hot rod car that I zipped around New Jersey in for that summer, and was driving back from the shore in New Jersey. And I had just dropped off a prospectus to a friend of mine who I wanted to have come work for this new company that I had also started while I was ramping up over the course of the summer. And I was speeding through traffic. I was on my way to actually to go skydiving, which is another brilliant idea that I thought would be a good idea. So I decided I was going to go skydiving. On my way to do that, driving up 287, which is a freeway in New Jersey, and saw the red and blue lights coming from behind me, and they were coming for me. And instead of turning on my signal and pulling over and casually slowing to a stop and giving my license and registration, something changed and something switched. And what switched was, instead of pulling over for the police officer that was behind me, I shifted from fifth to third and ramped into the shoulder and raced down the exit, the nearest exit, and was in a full speed car chase, Dukes of Hazzard style, with a New Jersey State Trooper. And he was not reluctant to engage and was behind me immediately. And I was sliding left, sliding right, turning to lose him. I was racing for my license and my freedom. And I made eventually a right-hand turn and hid my car next to a warehouse and heard the police sirens go by, woo, 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 and keep going. So I outran him, and that was just fuel to my fire of how I was unstoppable, because I don't even have to stop for the police if I don't want to. This is just part of the ramp up that I'm talking about, this hypomania. Um, it reached its wall, I'll call it. Not long after, I was doing a college tour, visiting friends at school while they were away at school, and I was waiting to start school. I was waiting to start at Stanford in September. And I was on my way back from visiting friends and had lost my wallet, was running out of gas, stopped at a campus, at Towson University in Maryland, to visit a friend to get some money to get home, and ended up getting arrested for trespassing on the college campus and taken to, not to a hospital, but to the Baltimore County Detention Center, where I had what would be described pretty accurately as a major attitude problem that was not appreciated. I didn't think that I deserved to be arrested. Who are you to arrest me, especially? Didn't think that I deserved to be in jail. Didn't think that I deserved any of that, and so had the attitude to accompany that. And the way the Baltimore County Detention Center corrected my attitude problem was by having a correctional officer beat me almost unconscious in an elevator on the way up to solitary confinement, which is where I was being housed. So that was the beginning of my negative experience with authorities and with the law, thanks to bipolar disorder, and spent 9 days in jail waiting for that same correctional officer to come and kill me, because he said it was self-defense and I had nothing to say to counter that. So I thought he could do whatever he wanted to me. And that led eventually to my parents getting engaged, getting involved, got me transferred from jail finally to a psychiatric hospital in Maryland, and then to a psychiatric hospital in New Jersey finally. The whole while, I was still getting more and more manic over time. So when it went wrong, it really went wrong. So the car chases you see here in the top left, but led to hospitalization, led to jail. Um, it led to eventually it led to psychosis. I ramped up out of hypomania into full-blown mania, into a full-blown psychosis, where I believed that I was being tested for membership to a circle of super knowing individuals, people who knew everything. They knew why who killed Kennedy, and they knew why the sun rose and set. They knew everything. And along the way in my psychosis, this is very, very stereotypical manic stuff for anybody who's not familiar. But I believe that I was all knowing, and that I was a member of this circle of super knowing individuals. Um, left New Jersey for California, where I was then scheduled to become a freshman at Stanford in the winter quarter, because I was incarcerated in the fall and didn't make it, but was able to start in January. Left New Jersey completely psychotic. Hadn't slept for, it was 6 days without sleep in New Jersey, and then got on the plane. And just to illustrate the story a little bit, not to romanticize mania, I'm not, that's not my intention, but just to illustrate it. Got on the plane, and every time the seatbelt chime rang, fasten seatbelt chime rang, that was a signal to me from these members that it was something that I was supposed to notice. And so, for example, I was supposed to notice the safety manual in the back pamphlet, the safety pamphlet in the back of the seat in front of me. And in reading the messages that were on the safety panel on the safety card, these are written in Korean, Chinese, Japanese, kanji characters that I, of course, understood, and they were meant for me. Ding, another chime, more meaning. Get to Stanford, and things go wrong. You see the bottom left corner Stanford expulsion. We're getting to that in just a second. But I got to Stanford and believed that was certain that number one, I was the youngest, hottest member to hit the scene, and that the entire campus of Stanford University was set up as one giant testing ground designed 100% from the beginning for me to go there and take this test of getting membership into this circle of super knowing individuals. So, um, if you are bipolar, you might be smiling or nodding. If you're not, you might be shaking your head. But that was my experience, and ended up getting kicked out of Stanford. I was at Stanford and walked around campus for 3 days in a psychotic haze, believing that I was solving this puzzle and gaining my membership to the circle, and was very quickly removed after writing all over the walls of my freshman dorm and taken to a hospital and put on Haldol, which is an older antipsychotic, but an effective one. And I came back crashing back down to reality, and um, and yeah, and all of these amazing things that I had seen, the members and all this testing and all these phenomenal visions, incredible stuff that I'd seen, it all went away. And my plan was to tell my family and friends when I got out of the hospital all these amazing things that I was learning and all these things that I was achieving, and that all evaporated. So all of a sudden I was just a 18-year-old kid stuck in a psych hospital and taken back to New Jersey and on Haldol, where I then entered a depression that came after the mania and is very typical for bipolar people like me to crash after going through a manic episode, which I did. Um, so not all positive, and that started the cycle for me. So we're getting to the cycle, which was I'd be put on a medication, I'd get better, meaning not psychotic. So I'd come back to reality, get through the depression, and then feel normal, whatever normal is a relative term, but feel relatively normal, and decide after a short while that I was better and didn't need the medication anymore. So you see this circular pattern on the slide. Um, I would decide I didn't need medication for it, stop the medication, and then within a couple of months, I would have another manic episode, another psychosis, another incarceration, more hospitalization, and this went on for literally for years and years of every 6 to 12 months, I would have a new manic episode and end up tens of thousands of dollars in debt, no freedom, no relationship. Any girl that I've been dating was long gone by the time I came out of manic episode, and that was the cycle for me for years and years, and it was brutal and painful, and just the situations I put myself in going through that are terrifying, and I'm lucky to be alive. Um, what it felt like and why I didn't stay well is that mania, it turns out, is better than any drug you can buy on the street. It is the most amazing feeling. And again, not to romanticize it, I'm just trying to give an accurate description so people can have some insight if they don't have it already. But without it, I felt diminished, less creative, less alive. It was something that I gave up and something that I didn't want to give up. So I went back to it again and again and again, having episode after episode after episode, and having these episodes where it was the same thing, lather, rinse, repeat every single time was incarceration of some kind. So loss of freedom. Either I was in jail or I was in a hospital. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt every time. I was doing things that were putting my life in jeopardy every time. It was remarkable. Along came Paco. So back now a long time ago, I was a sophomore at Stanford, and I had just come off of having a one of any number of manic episodes and being kicked out. I was kicked out. I had been kicked to Stanford a total of 4 times. But one of the times that I was kicked out, and I walked into a tattoo studio in Redwood City. And for those of you who don't know, it's a town in the Bay Area, a little south of San Francisco. And I met Paco. Paco was the artist and the owner of a shop. And I had an idea for a tattoo, which you can see here. But I had an idea for a tattoo that I described to him. And he was drawing while I was talking and came up with an idea that I liked, and we became friends over time. We were going through similar experiences at the time. So I had just broken up with, or not broken up with, I had just been broken up with, excuse me, by my girlfriend. He had broken up with his girlfriend. We were financially strained, so we had a lot of things to bond over. We became good friends, and I shared with him some of the story that I've shared with you, or most of the story that I've shared with you, in terms of mania, bipolar episodes, what it felt like, what I did. And Paco said, Michael, I'm in AA, and it saved my life a long time ago. And the way you describe your relationship with mania sounds a lot like the way alcoholics I know describe alcohol or addicts I know describe their drugs. So, what would you think of saying mania was your drug of choice and working the steps and seeing if we can get you to stop having these manic episodes every 6 to 12 months because you're gonna die, bro. You're not gonna make it to 25 if you keep this up. And I said, that makes sense. Let's give that a shot. So that's what we did. I said mania was my drug of choice, and I reframed my relationship with bipolar and looked at mania as almost as a substance that I was addicted to, and applied the 12 steps of AA to my illness. And that was the beginning of the beginning of the end of my manic episodes. Um, a lesson, the most valuable, and there were many. The most valuable lesson, the most valuable thing I learned from AA was how to take ownership of my illness and how to really accept responsibility and accountability, and how to make that mine. So ownership was really the shift that changed everything. And I went from psychotic euphoria, which is rewarding in some ways. It's a wonderful feeling, to real life rewards. And you see my daughter in the picture, um, on the slide. This is always an emotional picture for me. Um, but uh, but when I took ownership, thanks to what I learned from Paco and the program, um, everything changed. Everything changed. It was not about blaming everyone else for my problems. It was about taking a good long look in the mirror and accepting that I was the one who had to own this. And that was when the fantastic meaning, like in fantasy or not reality rewards of mania got replaced with the very real and tangible rewards of things like parenthood, where I was able to have a stable relationship with a woman who I loved and was able to have this little girl enter the world, and there were more to follow for sure. But when I took ownership, that was when everything changed. Everything changed. So fast forward a couple of years, and there were more kids. There's four of them. Woo, woo. Yeah, there are four of them. Um, but it really this ownership framework for me, and I put this picture in the deck to remind me and to share with you some of the rewards. So it's not car chases and skydiving or jumping out of airplanes. I could still do that, I guess, if I wanted to, but the car chases have gone away. But really a much richer and much more rewarding and certainly real set of rewards around raising a family and having the love of my partner and my children. And that's what I exchanged for the mania substance that I elected to put down and put away. It comes down to through core principles, recognition, so acknowledging that the disorder was mine to manage, responsibility, realizing that I was the one who had to own it, and I was surrounded by friends and family, just begging me. I literally had friends on their knees in the doctor's office, in the psychiatrist's office, begging me to take my medication before I took ownership, and I wouldn't listen because I didn't think anything was wrong with me. But when I took ownership, I assumed agency for me and my illness and what I was able to accomplish, what I was able to do, and that is when everything turned around. So this is the family as it stands today. For those of you who are looking at the slides, it's better to say the least. So what's the difference between ownership and compliance? For me, compliance was passive adherence. I was told to do these things by my doctor, by my parents, by my friends, mostly by my doctors. And I would do it for a little while, but I would get bored and I'd miss the high. It was something, it was phenomenal. It was really something to walk away from. Um, and go back to it. And that was my cycle for years and years, longer than I care to admit. For a long time, I did that every 6 to 12 months. I'd have a major episode. Ownership, on the other hand, was more active engagement. So it was really partnering with my care team and being the one to make the appointments, keep the appointments, do the tasks, wake up every morning, take the medication, get the sleep, like follow directions. But the difference is that it was coming from me because I had taken ownership as opposed to me just being told to do this, which that just wore off every 6 to 12 months, and I'd have another episode. So it was really when I took ownership that these changes happened. So it is a daily practice, and it's almost tedious routine, but the rewards for the tedious routine make the tedium of the routine insignificant and immeasurably insignificant compared to the benefit of having my wellness, my my sanity. So, but it's taking medication every day. It's getting 8 hours of sleep every night, and these are non-negotiable. This happens every single day for the last, and it's been 25 years since my last episode, and every single day I do these things without fail. I have not missed a dose of medication in 25 years, and that comes from doing it. It's a very AA cliche, but doing it one day at a time, and that is how I do it. And um, I'm able to I believe I'm able to summon the will to do this every day for so long and so consistently because I've taken the ownership of my illness and I'm the one who cares about the outcome. And I went for a long time without that, and it's it's time I wish I could get back, but it's also something that I hope I can share with you all in the audience and people in your network who you know that I can talk to about how to do that to shortcut some of the pain that I went through, because instead of spending years of pain, let's do this in months instead of years. So in real life, it looked like consistent psychiatric care. I had to see a doctor on a regular basis. I had a therapist, a psychopharmacologist. It took a while. One thing that I'll say about bipolar disorder and mania in general is it takes the treatment of it, I should say, is it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience. And the consistent psychiatric care that you see there, that I probably went through six or seven or more doctors, psychiatrists, before I found one who called me on my BS, first of all, and was somebody that I could work with. So it took a long time to find the right person, he or she. It took a long time to find the right person, the right doctor, the right team. And then it took a while to find the right medication. And some people spend years getting on the right medication. I was pretty fortunate. We dialed it in relatively quickly. We had some false starts, um, but it took a lot of patience and a lot of tolerance of side effects. Am I gaining weight? Is my head cloudy? Do I have to sleep all day? Just lots of side effects and lots of medication. But the but it took just a lot of patience to get through and get to the right mix, they call it bipolar people love to call it a cocktail, but the right mix of medication that I could be on for the long term that would keep me stable. Peer support. I did not do this by myself. I was the person, and I'll take full responsibility and claim this. I took ownership, but the moment I took ownership, I was surrounded and very fortunate to be surrounded by a rich network of friends and family who had been waiting, begging me, some of them literally on their knees, begging me to seek this help, and were there to offer it to me the second I asked for it. So yes, I did take ownership, and that was the first step. But I was fortunate, and more fortunate than a lot of people who struggle with bipolar disorder, to have a network the support network that I had, and thank God for them. And some of them are actually on this call tonight, that have seen me at my worst and are seeing me do this now. And it's a lot it's a lot different than it was, I'll say that. Spiritual grounding also. I have a meditation and gratitude practice that I do every day, and that I think that keeps me where I need to be in terms of doing that. It's not for everybody, but it works for me. So why did it stick? And here's another shot of the family all growing up, or except for the toddler. Oh, the toddler. Yeah. That may be the death of me. I won't have a manic episode, but I may have a shorter life thanks to the toddler. But why it stuck? It was look at the balance sheet. The cost of engagement, of treating, of taking the ownership and doing the right thing, was weekly therapy appointments, taking medication, had to manage the side effects, had to be monitored by a psychiatrist. Um, there's a financial component to it, but the measure that against the cost of mania, which is jail and hospitalization and loss of freedom and massive debt and homelessness. I was homeless for 3 months. Like I had nowhere to live. I lived in a halfway house. Thankfully there I found a place that would give me a place to sleep. I wasn't on the street, but I wasn't my home. Like risk of death. I'm you, you can only get in so many car chases with New Jersey State Troopers before you're dead. And that was what I was facing. And the outcome for me, thankfully, turned out for the positive. But just the cost comparison, when I looked when I put them side by side, there was really no comparison to make. It was a very simple decision. So the outcome, where did I land after taking ownership? Um, this is it's kind of like me bragging on this slide, but I'm so humbled to have this story to share with all of you. It's been 25 years since I had my last manic episode, and that's a long time in bipolar circles. And it's thanks to me having taken ownership, and that was the change that led to everything else. I graduated from Stanford, so I was kicked out, and I wasn't exaggerating, 4 times. The last time I went back was in 2001, and the dean of students who had been ringside for some of my antics before said, Michael, this is the last time, so let's make it work. And I did. I graduated. I got my degree. I wrote a book. We'll share. I think Caroline may have shared the link to it. I'd encourage you to or invite you to read it, check it out. But I wrote a book about my experience. It's been read by probably not thousands, but hundreds of people. I've gotten reviews on Amazon that have really inspired me to do the work that I'm doing now, which is to trying to be of service and help the community of bipolar individuals shortcut or reduce the amount of time it takes to get the healing and the reward that I've been fortunate enough to get. Um, had a successful technology career. I started as an engineer, a software engineer, then moved into pre-sales, moved into sales. I did sales for a long time. And sales, by the way, folks, is a stressful job. And it pushes a lot of people into doing a lot of bad things, all kinds of drinking and drugs and bad habits. And that wasn't my experience. I needed to sleep 8 hours a night, and that was the prescription from my doctor. And in order to do that, I had to have the foundation and the balance that I got from Paco and the program and my meditation practice and everything else to to keep that balance and to not get stressed. And there stress sales is intense. It was an intense career. Uh, but I slept 8 hours a night every night when I was in sales, and that's thanks to the foundation that I've established, thanks starting with Paco and other friends. And then my family, which you've seen, I I don't know where to start with that. That I am so filled with gratitude that I get to come home every day to these loving folks. And one of them has already flown the nest. My oldest daughter, the one you saw in the picture with me and the tattoo, the little baby. That's my oldest daughter, and she's at UC San Diego as a freshman now. I couldn't be more proud of her. But none of this happened. None of this happened. I was dead, man. I wasn't, none of this was my future without taking ownership. And so I'm just thankful that I did. So what it suggests for practice is that insight alone doesn't sustain recovery. Mania often functions as reward, and ownership must be cultivated over time. Yeah, the ownership, I'm telling it in a 60-minute presentation. So it sounds like it happened really fast. It didn't happen overnight. It was years in the making, and there were stumbles along the way, and hospitalizations and medication changes and all kinds of challenges. But I stuck it out, and the rewards are very real, and the I've lost the excitement of bipolar mania, but traded it in for something so much better, S- tangible, real, rewarding, love, and all kinds of rewards. It's like door after door just opened for me as soon as I took ownership, and that's very real. I'm living proof, and I'm no one special. Like I just followed directions and had the made a what seems like a small decision that had a huge impact that I'm trying to encourage other people to make for themselves, and they have to make it for themselves. It's not something anyone else can do for you. But but wow, you know? So the shared question is, how do we move people from compliance to ownership? And that goes back to something that I learned a long time ago in the program, which was when it hurts enough, people change. And all we can do is be standing at the ready for our loved one who's suffering and struggling and self-harming and just destroying themselves time and time again. Um, for me it was getting out of the hospital and my parents saying, "Michael, we're done. You're on your own. Good luck." And leaving the hospital with nowhere to go and spending 3 months as a homeless person, um, I'd had enough. So by the time I walked into Paco's shop back all those years ago, I was in some pain. It hurt enough that I was willing to change, and that's how we move people from compliance to ownership. That really made the difference. So some elements worth exploring. Words matter. Words matter, and framing matters also. For me, and this is not for everyone. For me, framing mania as a drug of choice and framing my relationship with it as an addiction, that that made sense to me. It doesn't make sense to everyone, but it made sense to me. And I think if there's a lesson to learn there, it's really find the thing or help your loved one find the thing that makes sense to him or her, and encourage that. And it takes repetition. So I've been hospitalized more times than I care to imagine, more times than I care to recount, many times. It took a lot of repetition, but I got there and I got it, and so can everyone else. So in wrapping this up, what I hope you take away from this hour that we're spending together and the time after also is that bipolar disorder is manageable over decades, but it takes more than meds. So when someone says just take your meds, they're being naive, because it really, for me, it took taking ownership, and it took taking ownership and being in pain to be able to walk away from the very seductive high of mania to embrace this life of normalcy, and to gain these phenomenal rewards that I've gotten over time. Um, Closing thought, long-term stability is possible, but it takes sustained commitment. It it's that tedious routine. It's literally 25 years of every single day doing the same thing, which sounds monotonous and boring, but the other pictures that you saw of my family, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's so worth it. So I wouldn't have it any other way. So just a closing thought is that medication treated my symptoms, ownership treated my life. And and thank God that I walked into that tattoo shop 30 years ago, or 25 years, no, 30 years ago. Um, and was going through was in enough pain that I was willing to listen. Actually, that's the end of the sentence. Was in enough pain that I was willing to listen. Um, because that's what it took. And that was the beginning of a slow and sometimes painful movement towards ownership that became an adoption, and it just has snowballed over the course of my life now. Um, yeah, to what I needed to do to claim my life for myself and to get all the wonderful things that I've been fortunate enough to enjoy.